Bought the wrong 3D printer and I want to make sure that you don't do the same. I want to go over Bamboo Lab series of 3D printers. They are an excellent 3D printing company that makes 3D printers. And they honestly make a solution for everybody. I consider them to be the Apple of 3D printing. Their 3D printers, you don't really modify them very much. They pretty much come excellent straight out of the box, and you can use it, and they have preset settings for any material that you could ever need for your projects. Um, However, I ended up buying a Bambu Lab 3D printer that I think today is not the right 3D printer for what I should have gotten. So, first off, we have the Bambu Labs Carbon X1 Carbon 3D printer. This is the creme de la creme, top of the line Lamborghini 3D printer. There are other niche companies that make better 3D printers. However, this is like the most common top of the line 3D printer you'll see today in professional engineering facilities or anything like that. This 3D printer has all sorts of different features that can print any type of material, including ABS. ABS is a really hard material to 3D print. This one is definitely really good for ABS or any other niche materials that you might want to use. Um, the type of customer or user that I would recommend for this is if you, again, are a large company or a print farm that really doesn't know what material they're going to be printing. Uh, but however, that comes with that hefty price tag. Even without the AMS unit, as you can see right down here, the combo comes with this four material switcher, which can pull up to all sorts of different materials. Uh, Even without that, it still comes to just over $1,000, which honestly, if you are a makerspace or anything like that, you probably won't need that capability. And I recommend taking the money that you would be spending on this printer and buying a couple different printers or buying two of the same smaller printers for your use case. And now if we go down to the P1S, this is the printer I bought. I love this 3D printer. I bought it while it was on sale. It was a little bit less than what you see there, and I did buy it with the AMS unit. Um, First thing I want to say is I love this printer. It is was definitely something that I'm getting a lot of use out of. However, I don't really use it to its full potential. I don't really use the enclosure very much. I do use the AMS from time to time. However, it's still pretty expensive, and I primarily use PLA, and I haven't experimented with PETG, but I have used PETG in the past for other projects. But realistically, I this is an unnecessarily large and expensive 3D printer. Now, that doesn't mean it's a bad 3D printer. A lot of people do say that the screen right here is very not very user friendly. I don't find that to be the case. I don't have this 3D printer connected to the Wi-Fi. However, all 3D printers from Bamboo Labs can be connected to the Wi-Fi and be used through the Bamboo Studio app. But ultimately, this printer is not for me. I'm an individual. I'm a college student. I don't really need this big of a 3D printer, or it's rather the enclosure in this style 3D printer. If you're a makerspace and you're making things for other people, highly recommend it. You can buy a couple of these. You could probably you can get a lot more use out of it per dollar than you can with the X1 Carbon. And then likewise, there's also the P1P option, which is basically the same thing, except for it doesn't have the enclosure, and then I believe it doesn't have the side fan that's in this region. Now, if you're watching this video, you probably are not too familiar with 3D printers, and likewise, you should start here. These are the Bamboo A1 and the A1 Mini 3D printer. They are basically the same 3D printer, except for that the standard A1 is the same exact size as the P1 and the X1 lines of 3D printers. I definitely recommend either of these printers if you're a high school student who just wants to like experiment, or if you really don't have much space, really don't have that much money to spend on a 3D printer. We're going to look at both of these 3D printers just because, so we can look at the price. And really, the main difference between the two, yeah, the main difference is the size. The, as you saw in the other one, it does not have one of these support arms on it. That really does not come into effect. Like both print with extremely similar quality, except one is a little less expensive than the other. I would highly recommend this one for someone who's like graduated college, has a little bit more, or sorry, excuse me, graduated high school, has a little bit more money, and just needs the build space on the plate. Now, do do I need that entire space? No, I don't really print anything that's that big, so I could have gone with the mini and gotten away with it. But it's nice to have the extra size so you can print just more on one build plate. Another thing to mention is that do you really need the AMS unit? Honestly, I don't really use the AMS unit too much unless it's like a cosmetic part. Um, I really think if you are starting out, you really don't need an AMS unit. Like if you're just tinkering around 3D printers and just really want to get into the hobby, just get it standard. Because if you really want to create like a sign or something, you can actually have it where the printer stops and you can manually change out the filament. And it'll help you do it as well. It has like steps and stuff like that. And if you experiment with it a couple times, you'll get it down. Um, so this A1, the standard one, I would highly recommend if you are a high school class who wants just a 3D printer to get started. Now, you can upgrade to the P1 if you are a school. I do think it's a good option, especially because it like fits on a shelf and it looks very cosmetically pleasing. In explaining to people when I bought the P1S who really didn't know much about it, I was saying it was definitely like a more cosmetic, it's more of an appliance than a hobbyist tool. Whereas the A1 is more of a hobbyist tool. Um, I Now going down to the A1 Mini, they call it the GOAT of the entry-level 3D printers. You know what? I can agree. If again, like if you're a entry-level high school student or a high school student or college student who just really wants something, the print size, if I can find it, is 100, basically just under 200 millimeters cubed. That is basically 100. I can't quite remember the size of the P1, but it's honestly not that much smaller if you really think about it. You're really not printing anything that's going to take up the entirety of the build plate of the A1 or any of the other 3D printers. This is just a really good starting point. Uh, One thing that really was troubling me when I was buying my 3D printer is I spent hours and hours and hours watching YouTube videos like this one of which one should I buy and stuff like that. I ended up picking the P1S because I was, you know, wanting the enclosure. I really liked the style of it and everything, but honestly, I don't really think it's worth it. Do I regret my purchase? No, I don't. I really use it all the time. But honestly, the with the amount of time I spent watching YouTube videos like this one, I could have honestly went out, worked more hours at a job, and bought the Carbon X one with how much time I spent just looking at videos. So stop obsessing. Just go and buy that 3D printer that you really want. Um, and honestly, if you don't know what you want, you should really just start out with the A1 Mini because you can cut up your models. You can do all sorts of different stuff with this one. Don't just stop stressing.